Okay, I'm trying to put up a green screen, and for some reason, there we go. Okay, excellent. Is that correct? There we go. No. Hi! We do not need to concentrate on me right now. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. Wait, I've got lots to say. Hi, everybody. My name is Lasha, and you've reached the channel High Voltage. I was going to just call the channel, that was the original idea, just my name. And then I thought, no, 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 High Voltage. And it was actually my friend that wrote it on the, near the furnace. And then it just stuck. And that's where the channel really started to begin. And tonight, I want to talk about the assassination of Trump. It's been on my mind for a very, very long time. However, I was afraid to say anything. Now, I haven't read this article by John Marshall 10 hours ago. Okay, I just read it now. I do not believe that Trump, I believe it was a setup. We haven't heard anything about the assassin. We haven't heard anything about the family. This young boy, in my opinion, was a pansy. And I don't know how, why, what, when, where, how that man could plan anything. But if anybody thinks that Donald Trump has a brain in his head, he has a brain in his head as much as the negative comments that people leave here, to the point where the manager of the channel deletes them because he doesn't want my feelings to get hurt. However, I want you to say whatever you think. I am not going to ask you to subscribe. I am not going to ask you to like. If you like what I'm saying, if you agree with it, I urge you, this is a conversation that needs to be started, because Donald Trump has gotten away with too much, and I think people really negate to remember who he is, especially the likes of Candace. Piers Morgan is constantly sticking up for Donald Trump because they're friends. If you go to the Royal Grift and watch Donald Trump with Putin, you tell me what's going on right now. And, the whole time that my mother and I watched replays of that, and I did it in slow motion, that bullet didn't go near his ear. It was a fake, in my opinion. It was a hoax, in my opinion. It was a fargazi. It was fucking bullshit. And the worst part about him, Donald Trump, setting this up, is that a fireman lost his life with children and a family, really believing in this con artist. And I think it's disgusting. Donald Trump is nothing but a total example of narcissism, selfishness. Why did Ivanka turn to Judaism? Do you know that this is based on what I know, and I this is just vague. You know that if you turn to Judaism and you go to Israel, you get housing, money. You know, it's unbelievable. It really is unbelievable. And so when you look back at who Donald Trump is, I would really go back to uh, Barbara Walters interviewing Donald Trump and asking Donald Trump in the 80s and are you going to run for president? And Barbara Walters was not a very nice woman. She was a lonely woman. She purposely would try to hurt people. The way in which Barbara Walters interviewed Monica Lewinsky, and take a look at those. Watch Donald Trump on The View and what he said about Ivanka on The View, and Rosie O'Donnell had him pegged from the beginning. And now she's living in Ireland. You know, to find out who Donald Trump is and the bullshit, you know, him coming down the elevator with Melania, he paid people to be there. He is the biggest con artist on the planet who only wants to make a name for himself and could give two hells about any of you. And there are very sophisticated channels on YouTube that I am astonished, like Donald Trump. It's absolutely bewildering to me because he's cruel. He is purposely holding back the Epstein files, which everybody, you have to read the book Elite about the rise and fall of the House of York regarding Prince Andrew, Sarah Ferguson. And, you know, Andrew Gold, I don't know how he does it, but he finds the absolute best interviews. Anyways, I do not believe Donald Trump was shot in the ear because it would have blown off. It was so fake. And then he got up and said, fight, fight, fight. And then you have Megyn Kelly, who I've noticed has lost almost 1 million subscribers. They're all going to Candace Owens now. It's bizarre. And I think that Hollywood is on its way out, and it's all going to come into this space. And everybody needs to be so careful about what they believe in. And I can promise everybody this: Ghislaine Maxwell won't be pardoned, but she'll go to a fancy jail where that vampire, the blood woman, Elizabeth Holmes, I used to have a very deep voice and she would talk about transforming everything. I mean, I know that voices are very, very important. However, if I ever have to hear Donald Trump's voice again, I actually might be sick to my stomach. And then Megyn Kelly, the way Donald Trump treated Megyn Kelly when he first ran for president was nothing short of misogynistic and gross. Oh, she must have her you-know-what bleeding through her eyes and her nose and so on. What type of man talks that way? And it's all been normalized. It's not normal. Go back and watch Jimmy Carter. He was probably one of the most decent presidents. He was a Democrat, or he might have been a Republican, very, very religious. You know, so that's my take on Donald Trump and his ear, and it was fake because there's been nothing in the news about that family. Nobody's dug into it. Nothing. Okay? You know, he could have convinced that kid, just throw a couple of shots and go to jail. But he made a mistake and he killed a fireman. It's all BS. Like the Russian thing. And everybody blaming Barack Obama. Barack Obama had to bend over backwards to please everybody because he was the first African American president. And it's the truth. And actually, he's biracial. But he's, I think he's a cool cat, a little arrogant. But I think what people forget is that the people that are running this world, which starts off with the families that first came to America with money, nepotism, and so on and so on and so on, and we're just all slaves in it. However, you can find happiness. Rosie O'Donnell moved to Ireland. At any rate, Ghislaine Maxwell, they'll be flying her to Israel. She's not going to do any time. Maria Farmer predicted that, and I absolutely believe it. And when you look at pictures of Ghislaine Maxwell before prison and in prison, she looks younger. She's had a facelift. She's had Botox. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Maria Farmer was right about Epstein and Donald Trump. Nobody listens. Nobody cares. And I think people don't realize that as a global community, we have more power. There are more of us than leaders. But the problem is, a lot of people who get really, really high in politics are sociopathic because you have to manipulate, you have to form relationships that aren't real. I think it would be absolutely exhausting. So that's my take tonight, and thank you very much for your time. Hello, Jacob. I don't have any evidence. This is just my opinion. I haven't even read this article. It's just been on my mind for a long time. And this is just my opinion. And we all have opinions. And even if you don't agree with my opinion, that's okay. I just want to start a conversation about this because it's very important. The other thing that's important that does have evidence, the JFK documentary. I read the book Ask Not on this channel, a little bit here and there, and that plane crash, about the facts of what really happened based on that documentary. I'm going live tomorrow and I'm reading Ask Not, the chapters in reference to JFK's plane crash. Thank you for liking. If you subscribed, I appreciate it more. I appreciate the likes. I appreciate all of you. And if anybody wants to know why I started this channel, I was in a wheelchair for a year in Canada because a doctor broke every oath. He made such a mess of everything. I had to have 4 corrective surgeries. I couldn't bend my leg for 4.5 years. And sitting there and thinking about things too deeply maybe isn't healthy. However, I watched a lot of YouTube in that wheelchair. Oh my gosh. You know what I need to do prior to doing a live or a video is if I were to write down what I want to say the way everybody else does, I might have my intention, my thoughts, my beliefs. I'm not backing them up with evidence, and that's an excellent point because there is evidence and I need to put it together. So this was learning for me too. So thank you, Jacob. And I hope all of you have a great night. I really appreciate it. Bye for now. Oh, I'm going to try and turn it off without anybody seeing me. Have a good night, everybody.